The early morning sun peeked through the airport windows as Maya Johnson walked through Terminal 3 of O'Hare International Airport. Her rolling carry-on made a soft rumbling sound against the polished floor as she checked her watch. 3 hours. Until her flight to London. Perfect timing. Maya loved airports in the morning. They held a special kind of quiet energy. People moving with purpose, the smell of fresh coffee in the air, and that sense of adventure that came with travel. After 15 years of flying, she still felt that little flutter of excitement before each flight. Today was different, though. Usually, Maya walked these halls in her crisp black uniform, gold captain stripes on her shoulders, turning heads as she passed. Today, she had chosen comfort over formality. Her favorite university sweatshirt hung loosely over her frame, paired with well-worn jeans and her trusty sneakers. Her natural curls were pulled back in a simple ponytail instead of her usual neat bun. One day of comfort won't hurt, she had told herself that morning, packing her uniform in her carry-on. She would change before the flight, of course, but for now she was just another traveler. Well, not quite. Maya smiled to herself. As both a Boeing 787 captain and recently appointed director of flight operations at Skyline Airlines, she was hardly just another traveler. The week had been exhausting. Back-to-back meetings at headquarters, planning sessions for new safety protocols, and hours of discussion about the airline's expansion plans. Maya had earned this moment of casual comfort before slipping back into her professional role. She stopped to buy a magazine and a bottle of water, chatting briefly with the shop clerk about the weather. That was something Maya made a point of doing, connecting with the people who kept the airport running, from shop clerks to baggage handlers. Her grandmother had always told her that leadership wasn't about titles, but about how you treated people. Maya carried that wisdom with her, every day. As she walked toward the first-class lounge, Maya thought about the flight ahead. London was one of her favorite routes, challenging enough to keep things interesting but familiar enough to feel comfortable. Her co-pilot would be Alex Chen, a talented young pilot she'd been mentoring. They worked well together, with Alex, soaking up every bit of knowledge Maya offered. Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out her credentials, her pilot's license, Skyline Airlines ID, and executive platinum membership card. Though she rarely used the lounge when flying as a passenger, today she wanted some quiet time to review flight plans and perhaps catch a short nap before the long journey. The lounge entrance looked inviting, with its soft lighting and promise of comfortable seating. Maya could almost taste the fresh coffee she planned to enjoy while going through her pre-flight mental checklist. As director of flight operations, she believed in leading by example, which meant being thoroughly prepared. For every flight, she approached the entrance, credentials in hand. A young man in a sharp suit stood at the desk, tapping away at a computer. He looked up as Maya approached, his eyes quickly scanning her casual outfit before meeting her gaze. "Good morning," Maya said with a warm smile. "Lovely day for flying." The man, Kevin according to his name tag, didn't return her smile. Instead, he straightened his posture slightly as if preparing himself for something unpleasant. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you today?" His tone was polite but oddly formal. "I'd like to use the lounge before my flight," Maya said, sliding her credentials across the counter. "I have about 2 hours before I need to prepare." Kevin glanced down at the cards, then back at Maya's sweatshirt and jeans. A slight frown creased his forehead. "I see you have a membership card here," he said slowly, picking up her executive platinum card with 2 fingers as if it might be fake. "And some kind of company ID?" Maya nodded, still smiling, though she noticed his hesitation. "Yes, I'm a captain with Skyline and also serve as a director. I'll be flying the London route this afternoon." Kevin's eyebrows rose slightly. "You're a pilot with Skyline Airlines?" There it was. That note of disbelief Maya had heard countless times over her career. It never got easier to hear, but she had long ago learned how to handle it with grace. "Yes, 15 years now. Started flying commercial right out of the Air Force," she said casually as if she hadn't noticed his surprise. "The 787 is my main aircraft these days." Kevin looked back down at her ID, then at his computer screen. Maya could see he was uncomfortable, maybe even embarrassed by his initial reaction. She wanted to put him at ease. It wasn't his fault that he'd been surprised. Society had certain expectations about what pilots looked like, and Maya had spent her career challenging those expectations. "I know I'm not in uniform," she offered, helping him save face. "I've been at headquarters all week for meetings. Thought I'd enjoy being comfortable for a few hours before changing for the flight." Kevin seemed to be processing this information, his fingers hovering over his keyboard. Maya waited patiently, used to giving people time to adjust their preconceptions. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but this lounge is for first-class passengers and airline staff in uniform," he finally said, pushing her credentials back toward her. His voice had taken on an official tone, as if he were reciting a policy. Maya tilted her head slightly, confused. "I understand the uniform policy is standard, but there are exceptions for off-duty pilots and airline executives. I qualify as both, actually." She kept her tone light and friendly. "I'm afraid I can't make exceptions," Kevin replied, his voice gaining confidence. "It's policy." Maya had encountered strict adherence to rules before, and she respected that. Kevin was trying to do his job properly. "I completely understand you need to follow protocol. Could you check with your manager? I'm sure they can confirm the exception policy." Kevin's face flushed slightly. "Ma'am, I've worked here for 6 months. I know all our airlines directors, and I've never seen you before." Now Maya understood. It wasn't just about the uniform policy. Kevin didn't believe she was who she said she was. She had run into this before, particularly when dressed casually. People had certain images in their minds about what airline directors looked like, and apparently Maya didn't fit that image in Kevin's mind. "I was just appointed to the board 3 months ago," she explained patiently. "I still maintain my flying schedule while handling directorial duties. It's actually quite common in the industry for pilots to move into executive positions while continuing to fly." 2 businessmen walked past, entering the lounge with a quick flash of their boarding passes. Kevin nodded at them politely before turning back to Maya with a hardened expression. "Anyone could claim to be a director," he said, lowering his voice. "Without proper verification, I can't allow you in." Maya took a deep breath, maintaining her composure. She had long ago learned that getting upset only reinforced stereotypes about angry black women. Instead, she reached for her phone. "I understand your caution. How about I show you the Skyline Airlines website? My photo and bio are on the leadership page." Kevin shook his head. "Internet photos can be manipulated. I need official documentation." Maya glanced at her watch. She still had plenty of time before her flight, but this interaction was starting to eat into her relaxation time. She considered simply walking away and finding a quiet corner of the terminal, but something inside her resisted. This wasn't just about her comfort. It was about being recognized for who she was regardless of how she dressed. "What would count as official documentation?" she asked, keeping her tone curious rather than confrontational. Kevin seemed momentarily stumped by this reasonable question. "Well, a uniform would be the most obvious proof," Maya nodded thoughtfully. "And if I'm not currently in uniform? Then perhaps a letter from the airline confirming your status or—" He trailed off, clearly unsure. "I have my pilot's license. And Skyline ID right here," Maya said, tapping the credentials still sitting on the counter between them. "Both have my photo." Kevin looked down at the IDs again, this time studying them more carefully. Maya could see the conflict on his face. The IDs certainly looked legitimate, but something was still holding him back from believing her. A young family passed by, the children's excited chatter briefly filling the space. Maya found herself wondering if their journey was just beginning or ending. It reminded her of why she loved flying, connecting people and places, bringing families together, opening up the world. She turned back to Kevin with renewed patience. "Look, I understand you're being careful. That's actually commendable. How about this? I know the lounge manager, Patricia. Is she working today?" Kevin's expression shifted subtly. "Ms. Williams is on break right now." "Perfect," Maya said with a genuine smile. "Patricia and I go way back. When she returns, she can confirm who I am. Would that work?" Kevin seemed to consider this compromise, but then his expression hardened again. "I'm sorry, but I can't let you wait in the lounge for that verification. It would be against policy. Maya felt a flicker of frustration but kept it from showing on her face. This was becoming a test of wills, and escalating the situation wouldn't help anyone. "I understand," she said, gathering her credentials and tucking them back into her pocket. "Could you perhaps call her? I'd be happy to wait here." Kevin hesitated, then reluctantly reached for the phone. As he did so, Maya noticed a group of pilots walking through the terminal, all in full uniform, laughing together as they headed toward their gate. She felt a momentary pang of regret for her decision to dress comfortably today. As Kevin dialed, Maya took a moment to center herself. This was hardly the first time she had faced skepticism about her role in aviation. From her earliest days in flight school, through her time in the Air Force and into her commercial career, Maya had often been the only black woman in the room. She had learned to navigate these situations with dignity and determination. Kevin spoke quietly into the phone, his eyes occasionally flicking up to study Maya's face. She met his gaze steadily, a slight smile on her lips. Whatever happened next, Maya knew one thing for certain. This encounter was about to become much more interesting. Kevin hung up the phone with a tight expression on his face. "Ms. Williams won't be back for another 30 minutes, he said, his tone suggesting this was somehow Maya's fault. Maya nodded calmly. "No problem. I can wait." Kevin's eyes narrowed slightly. "You'll need to wait somewhere else. This area is for lounge guests only." A few travelers glanced their way, curious about the quiet tension building between Maya and the lounge attendant. Maya felt their eyes on her but kept her focus on Kevin. "I understand," she said, stepping back from the counter. "I'll be over there." She pointed to a row of seats just across from the lounge entrance. "Please let me know when Patricia returns." Kevin gave a curt nod and turned his attention to his computer screen, clearly dismissing her. Maya walked to the seats with her head high, refusing to show the frustration bubbling beneath her calm exterior. As she sat down, she pulled out her phone and began scrolling through emails, determined to make good use of the unexpected delay. 10 minutes passed. Maya watched as several people entered the lounge, all greeted with smiles from Kevin. Most were older white men in business suits, though there were a few women and younger travelers among them. None were questioned the way she had been. Maya considered her options. She could call Patricia directly. They had known each other for years, having started at Skyline around the same time. Patricia had risen through customer service ranks while Maya had pursued her passion for flying. But something held her back from making that call. This wasn't just about getting into a lounge anymore. It was about a principle. A young woman in a crisp flight attendant uniform approached the lounge, and Maya watched as Kevin welcomed her warmly. The contrast with her own experience wasn't lost on Maya. Wearing a uniform meant instant recognition and respect. Without it, she was just another black woman trying to access a space where some people didn't think she belonged. Maya returned to her emails, responding to several urgent messages from her team. As the airline's newest director, she had been working hard to implement changes that would improve both safety and inclusivity. Just last month, she had pushed through a comprehensive review of hiring practices to address the lack of diversity among pilots. The irony of her current situation wasn't lost on her. "Excuse me?" Maya looked up to find an older gentleman standing before her, his expression curious and somewhat concerned. "I couldn't help but notice what happened," he said, his voice low. "Are you really a pilot with Skyline?" Maya smiled politely. "Yes, for 15 years now, and recently appointed as director of flight operations." The man's eyebrows shot up. "Well, I've been flying with Skyline for 20 years as a passenger, and I've never seen a woman pilot, much less." He trailed off, seemingly realizing what he was about to say. "A black woman pilot?" Maya finished for him, keeping her tone light. The man had the grace to look embarrassed. "Yes, exactly. I mean, it's wonderful. Just unexpected." Maya had had this conversation countless times before. "We're out there, though, not enough of us. Yet." Only about 5% of commercial pilots are women, and less than 2% are black women. I'm working to change those numbers. The man nodded thoughtfully. Well, good for you. Say, would you like me to speak to that young man at the desk? I'm a Skyline Diamond member, been one for years. He might listen to me. Maya considered the offer. It was kind, but having the stranger vouch for her seemed to miss the point entirely. I appreciate that, sir, but I think it's best if I handle this myself. Thank you, though. He nodded, looking slightly relieved. Of course. Well, good luck to you, and thank you for your service to aviation. He gave a small, somewhat awkward bow before continuing on his way. Maya watched him go, thinking about how often well-meaning people tried to help in ways that unintentionally reinforced the very problems they were trying to solve. The man had been kind, but his surprise at her position highlighted the biases that still existed in the industry. She checked her watch again. 20 minutes had passed. She wondered if Patricia was really on break, or if Kevin had simply said that to buy time. Just as she was considering approaching the desk again, she saw Kevin pick up the phone, his expression tense as he spoke to someone. As Maya watched, his face paled slightly. He glanced over at her, then quickly looked away when he caught her eye. Something had changed. Maya gathered her things and stood up, smoothing down her sweatshirt as she approached the lounge entrance again. Any news about Patricia? She asked, pleasantly. Kevin cleared his throat, looking distinctly uncomfortable. She's still on break, but I spoke with my supervisor. Maya waited patiently as Kevin struggled to find his words. He said I should check the airline's internal directory, Kevin finally continued. But our system is running slow. Today. Maya could see he was stalling. I see. Well, while we're waiting for the system, maybe you could try a simple Google search. Maya Johnson, Skyline Airlines director, should bring up some interesting results. Kevin's cheeks flushed. Ms. Johnson, I'm just trying to follow protocol. You have to understand. I do understand, Maya interrupted gently. You're doing your job, but part of that job is using good judgment, isn't it? Look at my IDs again. Look at my face. Compare it to the photos on those IDs. They're real, Kevin. Kevin reluctantly picked up her IDs again, examining them more carefully this time. Maya could see doubt creeping into his expression as he looked from the photos to her face and back again. These could be, he began, but his voice lacked conviction now. Fake? Maya finished for him. Think about that for a moment. Why would anyone create fake airline credentials just to access an airport lounge, especially credentials that are so easily verified? Kevin swallowed hard, clearly starting to realize he might have made a mistake. Just then, an alert chimed on his computer. He glanced at the screen, and Maya could pinpoint the exact moment when realization dawned on his face. His eyes widened and a look of horror slowly replaced his doubt. Ms. Johnson, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The directory finally loaded. I see your profile now. Maya nodded, keeping her expression neutral despite the satisfaction she felt. And? You really are the director of flight operations, appointed 3 months ago, and a senior captain. His voice cracked slightly on the last word. That's right, Maya confirmed. Just like I told you 25 minutes ago, people waiting behind Maya shifted impatiently, but she held her ground, waiting for Kevin to process what was happening. I'm so sorry, he finally said, pushing her credentials back across the counter with trembling fingers. Please go right in. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Breakfast? Maya picked up her IDs and tucked them back into her pocket. No, thank you. I can manage. As she reached for her carry-on, Kevin suddenly straightened. Wait, Ms. Johnson. I need to call my manager about this. There's been a miscommunication. Maya paused. Is that necessary? I don't want to cause trouble for you, Kevin. We all make mistakes. Kevin's eyes darted around nervously. It's protocol. When there's a situation with a director or executive, we're supposed to report it immediately. Maya understood then. Kevin wasn't concerned about making things right with her. He was worried about saving his own job. She felt a twinge of sympathy for him despite everything. "All right," she conceded. "Call your manager if you need to. But Kevin?" She waited until he met her eyes. "This doesn't have to be a big deal. I'm not looking to get anyone in trouble." Relief washed over his face, quickly followed by confusion. "Why not? I mean, after how I treated you." Maya smiled softly. "Because making you feel worse won't make me feel better. And because I understand what it's like to make mistakes. We all do it." Kevin stared at her for a long moment, then picked up the phone again. As he dialed, Maya finally entered the lounge, feeling the eyes of other travelers on her back. She kept her head high, walking with the quiet confidence that had carried her through numerous challenging situations throughout her career. Inside the lounge, Maya found a quiet corner seat with a view of the runways. She watched planes taking off and landing, each one a marvel of engineering and human cooperation. Flying had been her dream since childhood, when her uncle had taken her to an air show. The moment she'd seen those magnificent machines soaring through the sky, she'd known what she wanted to do with her life. The path hadn't been easy. Flight school had been expensive, and as one of the few women, and even fewer black women, in her classes, she'd faced skepticism and sometimes outright hostility. The Air Force had been both challenging and rewarding, teaching her discipline and precision while honing her natural talents. When she'd transitioned to commercial aviation, she'd faced a new set of obstacles. Passengers who did double takes upon seeing her in the cockpit, colleagues who questioned her abilities, and countless small indignities like the one she'd just experienced. Through it all, Maya had persevered with grace and determination. She'd learned to pick her battles, to distinguish between innocent ignorance and deliberate disrespect, to educate when possible and stand firm when necessary. Each challenge had made her stronger, more resilient, and ultimately a better leader. A server approached with a coffee pot. "Would you like some coffee, ma'am?" Maya looked up and smiled. "Yes, please. Black, no sugar." As the server poured, Maya noticed several people in the lounge glancing her way, some with curiosity, others with what looked like admiration. Word had spread quickly about what had happened at the entrance. "Is there anything else I can get you?" the server asked, her tone respectful. "No, thank you, this is perfect." The server hesitated, then leaned in slightly. "Ms. Johnson, I just wanted to say, I've read about you in the company newsletter. What you're doing for women in aviation is really inspiring." Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you. That means a lot." As the server walked away, Maya sipped her coffee and turned her attention to her flight preparations. She pulled out her tablet and began reviewing weather reports and flight plans, making mental notes about potential challenges on the route to London. She had just finished reviewing the passenger manifest when she felt a presence beside her. Looking up, she found Kevin standing there, his face a mask of professional politeness that couldn't quite hide his discomfort. "Ms. Johnson," he said stiffly, "my manager asked me to personally apologize for the misunderstanding earlier. She's on her way here now to speak with you." Maya set down her tablet. "Thank you for letting me know." Kevin shifted his weight from one foot to the other, clearly struggling with what to say next. "Ms. Johnson, I want to apologize personally as well. I made assumptions that were incorrect." Maya studied his face for a moment. Behind the practiced apology, she could see genuine regret, though whether it was for his actions or for the potential consequences, she couldn't be sure. "Thank you for that, Kevin. I accept your apology." He seemed surprised by her easy forgiveness. "Really? Just like that?" Maya smiled slightly. "Would you prefer I made it difficult?" No, of course not. It's just, most executives would—" "I'm not most executives," Maya said simply. "And I believe in second chances. We all need them sometimes." Kevin nodded slowly, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "Thank you. The manager should be here shortly." He turned to go, then paused. "Ms. Johnson, if you don't mind me asking, how did you do it? Become a pilot and a director, I mean. It must have been hard?" Maya finished for him. Yes, sometimes it was, but worth every moment. As for how I did it, she considered the question seriously. One day at a time, one flight at a time, and with a lot of help along the way. No one succeeds entirely on their own, Kevin. He seemed to think about this for a moment before nodding again. I'll remember that. Thank you. As Kevin walked away, Maya returned to her tablet, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought about how this small incident connected to the larger issues she was trying to address as a director. Bias didn't just exist in hiring processes or promotion decisions. It showed up in countless everyday interactions like the one she'd just experienced. The challenge was finding ways to address these biases constructively, to turn moments of conflict into opportunities for growth and understanding. Maya believed deeply in the power of education and empathy, in meeting ignorance with patience rather than anger. Not because she didn't have the right to be angry, she did, but because she'd learned that anger rarely changed minds or opened hearts. Outside. The window, a Skyline Airlines plane taxied toward the runway, its blue and silver livery gleaming in the morning sun. In just a few hours, Maya would be in command of a similar aircraft, responsible for the safety and comfort of hundreds of passengers. It was a responsibility she never took lightly, a trust she had earned through years of dedication and excellence. As she watched the plane begin its takeoff roll, Maya felt the familiar flutter of excitement in her chest. No matter how many times she flew, the magic never faded. The miracle of flight, the privilege of commanding such incredible machines, the joy of connecting people and places across vast distances. This was why she endured the occasional discomfort, the skepticism, the small indignities. This was why she continued to break barriers and challenge expectations, because the sky had always called to her, and she had always been determined to answer. A tap on Maya's shoulder pulled her attention away from her tablet. She looked up to see an elegantly dressed woman in her 50s standing beside her table. Patricia, Maya said, her face breaking into a genuine smile as she stood to embrace her old friend. It's been too long. Patricia Williams, the lounge manager, returned the hug warmly before pulling back to look at Maya with concerned eyes. Maya, I just heard what happened. I am so sorry. Maya waved away the apology. It's not your fault. And really, it's not a big deal. Patricia raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying Maya's casual dismissal. Not a big deal? One of my staff just refused entry to a senior captain and company director. I'd call that a very big deal. Maya gestured for Patricia to sit, and they both settled into the comfortable lounge chairs. He was just doing his job, Patricia. Admittedly with a bit too much enthusiasm and perhaps some unconscious bias, but still. Patricia shook her head, her short, silver-streaked hair catching the light. That's always been your way, hasn't it? Finding the most generous interpretation possible? Maya smiled. Not always, but I try. She took a sip of her coffee. Besides, I wasn't in uniform. I can see how that might have caused confusion. Maya, Patricia said, leaning forward slightly. I've seen plenty of off-duty pilots use this lounge in casual clothes. The difference is they weren't black women. Her direct words were softened by her gentle tone. Maya met her friend's gaze. Steadily. They had known each other long enough to speak plainly. Yes, I'm aware. But getting angry about it won't change anything. Who said anything about getting angry? I'm talking about accountability, Patricia replied. Kevin needs to understand what happened here. Maya nodded slowly. I agree, but I'd rather it be a learning opportunity than a punishment. Before Patricia could respond, Maya noticed a commotion at the lounge entrance. She looked over to see Thomas Bennett, Skyline's chief operations officer, speaking animatedly with Kevin. Even from a distance, Maya could see that Kevin had gone pale, his posture rigid as Thomas gestured emphatically. Oh no, Maya muttered. How did Thomas find out? Patricia followed Maya's gaze and sighed. The airport is a small world. Word travels fast, especially when it involves someone as well known as you. Maya stood up quickly. I need to intervene before this gets out of hand. As she approached the entrance, she could hear Thomas's voice rising in volume. Completely unacceptable treatment of a senior executive. Do you have any idea who she is? Kevin stood frozen, his eyes wide with panic. Sir, I deeply regret the misunderstanding. I was simply trying to follow protocol. Protocol? Thomas interrupted, his normally calm demeanor replaced by indignation. Protocol is no excuse for disrespect. Thomas, Maya called out as she reached them. It's okay. Thomas turned, his anger momentarily forgotten as he spotted her. Maya, I just heard what happened. This is outrageous. Maya placed a calming hand on her colleague's arm. It was a misunderstanding, that's all. Kevin and I have already sorted it out. Thomas looked skeptical. A misunderstanding? Maya, you shouldn't have to prove who you are just to access a lounge you have every right to use. Maya glanced at Kevin, who looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. You're right, I shouldn't. But it happened, and now we have a choice about how to handle it. By now, several lounge guests had paused their conversations to watch the drama unfold. Maya was acutely aware of becoming a spectacle, something she had worked hard to avoid throughout her career. Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private, she suggested quietly. Thomas seemed ready to object, but then noticed the audience they had attracted and nodded reluctantly. You're right. Is there a private room available? He asked, turning to Patricia, who had followed Maya. Yes, the conference room is free. This way. Patricia led them through the lounge to a small meeting room with glass walls. Once inside, she closed the door and lowered the blinds, giving them privacy from curious onlookers. Kevin stood awkwardly near the door, looking like he expected to be fired on the spot. Thomas took a seat at the table, his expression still thunderous, while Maya remained standing, trying to think of the best way to defuse the situation. Kevin, she began gently, this is Thomas Bennett, our Chief Operations Officer. Thomas, this is Kevin, who's relatively new to the lounge staff. Kevin extended his hand automatically, then seemed to think better of it and dropped it back to his side. Sir, I want to apologize again for the situation. I made a terrible mistake. Thomas leaned back in his chair, studying the young man. Yes, you did. And I'd like to understand exactly what happened. Maya stepped in. I approached the lounge in casual clothes, presented my credentials, and was initially denied entry because Kevin didn't recognize me and thought my IDs might not be genuine. That's not the full story, Thomas said, his eyes never leaving Kevin. From what I heard, you questioned her repeatedly and suggested she was lying about her position. Kevin swallowed hard. I did express skepticism about her claims. It was wrong of me, and I deeply regret it. The question is why, Thomas pressed. Why did you find it so hard to believe that Ms. Johnson could be both a pilot and a director? The room fell silent as everyone waited for Kevin's answer. Maya felt a twinge of sympathy for the young man, even as she recognized the importance of the moment. Sometimes growth required discomfort. Kevin began, then stopped, clearly struggling to articulate his thoughts. I guess I had a certain image in my mind of what a pilot looks like, and a director, and Ms. Johnson didn't match either of those images, especially not in casual clothes. And what does a pilot look like in your mind? Thomas asked, his voice deceptively calm. Kevin's discomfort was palpable. I don't know, I guess I usually picture older white men in uniforms. Maya nodded encouragingly. Thank you for being honest, Kevin. That's a common mental image many people have. The reality, though, is that pilots come in all genders, ages, and backgrounds, though admittedly the diversity isn't as great as it should be. That's something we're working to change. Thomas was still watching Kevin closely. Do you know how long Maya has been with Skyline? Kevin shook his head. 15 years, Thomas told him. She was flying combat missions in the Air Force before that. She has more flight hours than most of our senior captains. She's saved lives with her quick thinking and exceptional skills. And 3 months ago, she was unanimously voted onto the board as our new director of flight operations. Kevin looked at Maya with new eyes, a mix of awe and shame crossing his face. I had no idea. You couldn't have known all that, Maya acknowledged. But that's not really the point. The point is that you made assumptions based on how I looked, not on the credentials I presented. I understand now, Kevin said quietly, and I'm truly sorry. Patricia, who had been silent during this exchange, finally spoke up. Kevin, I need to ask, is this an isolated incident or have you denied access to others based on similar assumptions? Kevin's face flushed. I've been strict about enforcing the uniform policy for airline staff, but I can't say for sure that I've applied it equally to everyone. Maya appreciated his honesty. It couldn't have been easy to admit. I think, she said carefully, that this might be a good opportunity for us to review how the lounge staff are trained to verify credentials and welcome guests. Patricia nodded firmly. Absolutely. In fact, I've been wanting to update our training for some time. This just gives us the push we needed. Thomas still didn't look entirely satisfied. That addresses the systemic issue. But what about the individual? 1. There should be consequences for this kind of behavior. Maya moved to sit at the table, bringing herself to eye level with Thomas. I agree. But I think the consequence should fit the situation. Kevin made a mistake, he's acknowledged it. Now he has an opportunity to learn from it. She turned to Kevin. Would you be willing to be part of developing a new training module on unconscious bias for customer-facing staff? Your perspective, as someone who's recently recognized their own biases, could be valuable. Kevin blinked in surprise, clearly having expected a much different outcome. You want me to help with training? Even after what I did? Especially because of what you did, Maya explained. The best teachers are often those who have learned the lesson themselves. Patricia looked thoughtful. That's actually a brilliant idea. It would be much more impactful coming from a peer rather than just management. Thomas studied Maya for a long moment, then shook his head with a slight smile. Always turning problems into opportunities. It's why the board voted for you, you know. Maya smiled back. I thought it was my charming personality. That too, Thomas admitted, his anger finally dissipating. He turned back to Kevin. Well, what do you say to Ms. Johnson's proposal? Kevin stood a little straighter. I would be honored to help, and I promise, nothing like this will happen again. Good, Thomas said, rising from his chair. Patricia, I trust you'll coordinate with HR to get this training initiative started? Absolutely, Patricia confirmed. I'll call them this afternoon. As they prepared to leave the conference room, Maya checked her watch. I should start getting ready for my flight soon. We board in about an hour. Thomas nodded. I'll be on that flight too, heading to London for meetings with our European partners. You'll be in good hands, Patricia told him with a smile. No one flies a smoother route to London than Maya. The group exited the conference room, and Maya noticed that the lounge had largely returned to normal, with just a few curious glances sent their way. Kevin returned to his post at the entrance, standing a bit taller than before while Patricia excused herself to make some calls. Thomas lingered beside Maya. You know, you could have made a much bigger deal out of this. Most directors would have. Maya shrugged. What would that have accomplished? A young man would lose his job, the company would get some bad press, and nothing would really change. This way, we have a chance to address the real issue. Which is? The assumptions we all make based on appearance, Maya said simply. Kevin isn't unique in that regard. He's just the one who got caught today. Thomas nodded thoughtfully. You've always had a different approach to leadership. It's refreshing. Maya smiled. I learned early on that true authority doesn't come from making people fear you. It comes from earning their respect. A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched travelers moving through the lounge, each person carrying their own story, their own destination. I should get my things, Maya said finally. Need to change into my uniform and run through my pre-flight checklist. Of course, Thomas agreed. I'll see you on board. As Maya gathered her belongings, she noticed Kevin watching her from his post. When their eyes met, he gave her a small, respectful nod. Maya nodded back, hoping that today's difficult lesson would stay with him. She made her way to the restroom to change into her uniform, carefully hanging up her comfortable clothes and pulling on the crisp black pants, white shirt, and jacket with captain stripes. As she secured her tie and placed her cap on her head, Maya studied her reflection in the mirror. The uniform transformed her outward appearance, making her instantly recognizable as a pilot. But inside, she was the same person she'd been in jeans and a sweatshirt, a skilled professional with years of experience and a passion for flight. The challenge was getting others to see beyond the surface, to recognize competence and authority, regardless of its packaging. As she exited the restroom, in full uniform, Maya noticed heads turning in her direction, this time with recognition and respect rather than skepticism. The power of symbols wasn't lost on her, nor was the irony that the same people who might have questioned her authority in casual clothes now accepted it without hesitation. Maya walked through the terminal with confident strides, her rolling carry-on following behind her. At the gate, she spotted her co-pilot, Alex, already preparing for the flight. "Captain Johnson," Alex greeted her with a smile. "Ready for London?" "Always," Maya replied, returning the smile. "How's the weather looking?" "Clear skies most of the way, possible light turbulence over the Atlantic." "Nothing we can't handle." Maya nodded, appreciating Alex's thoroughness. "Good. Let's run through the pre-flight checks." As they reviewed the flight plan together, Maya noticed several passengers watching them with interest. A young black girl, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, stared at Maya with wide, wonder-filled eyes. Maya smiled at her, remembering her own childhood dreams of flying. The girl tugged on her mother's sleeve and whispered something. The mother looked up, saw Maya, and smiled encouragingly at her daughter. After a moment's hesitation, the little girl approached. "Excuse me," she said, her voice small but determined. "Are you really the pilot?" Maya knelt down to the girl's level. "I am. Captain Maya Johnson. What's your name?" "Zoe," the girl replied. "I want to be a pilot too when I grow up, but my friend Tommy said girls can't be pilots." Maya's heart squeezed. Some conversations never changed. "Well, Zoe, Tommy is mistaken. Girls absolutely can be pilots. I've been flying for 15 years. Zoe's eyes grew even wider. "Wow! Do you fly this big plane all by yourself?" Maya laughed. "I have help from my co-pilot, Alex. Flying a plane this size is a team effort." Zoe nodded seriously, processing this information. Can I see the cockpit sometime?" Maya glanced at the girl's mother, who had approached and was listening to their conversation with a smile. "If your mom says it's okay, perhaps after we land in London, we can arrange a quick tour." Zoe turned to her mother with pleading eyes. "Can I, Mom? Please?" The woman nodded. "If the captain says it's okay, then yes." Zoe beamed. "Thank you. I'm going to tell Tommy that I met a real lady pilot and she's taking me into the cockpit." As Zoe skipped back to her seat, her mother lingered. "Thank you for that. She's been talking about becoming a pilot for months now, but her confidence was shaken when the boys at school told her it wasn't a job for girls." Maya smiled. "It's my pleasure. We need more girls dreaming of the sky." The mother hesitated, then added, "It means even more to her seeing someone who looks like her in that uniform. Representation matters." "It does," Maya agreed, thinking about her own journey and the scarcity of role models who had looked like her. "Which is why I never take this uniform for granted." As the woman returned to her daughter, Maya rejoined Alex to complete their preparations. The encounter with Zoe had reminded her of why moments like the one with Kevin were important to address. Not just for herself, but for every little girl who looked up at the sky and dared to dream of flying. The boarding announcement began, and Maya took her position at the gate, greeting passengers as they entered the jetway. She saw Kevin watching from a distance, an unreadable expression on his face as he observed her in her element, confident, professional, and unmistakably in command. Maya gave him a small nod before turning her attention back to her passengers. Today had been challenging in unexpected ways, but it had also reinforced her commitment to creating change from within. One conversation, one misconception, one mind at a time. It wasn't always the easiest path, but in her experience it was the most lasting. Maya strode confidently down the jetway toward the aircraft, her mind already shifting into pilot mode. She loved this transition. The moment when all other concerns faded away and her focus narrowed to the complex, beautiful machine waiting for her, and the responsibility of safely carrying hundreds of people across an ocean. The familiar smell of the aircraft greeted her as she stepped on board, that unique blend of cabin air, upholstery, and subtle mechanical notes that felt like home. The lead flight attendant, Diane, looked up from her preparations with a warm smile. "Good afternoon, Captain Johnson. Lovely to see you again." "You too, Diane. How's the boarding process looking?" "On schedule so far. We're expecting a nearly full flight today." Maya nodded. "Good. I'll get started on the pre-flight checks." She made her way to the cockpit where Alex was already running through the initial systems check. "Everything looking good?" Maya asked as she settled into her seat. "So far, so good," Alex confirmed. "Weather report just came in, still clear, all the way to London with just a bit of expected turbulence over the mid-Atlantic." Maya began her own checklist, her hands moving with practiced precision over the controls. This was where she felt most at home, most herself, in the cockpit, preparing to command a magnificent feat of human engineering across vast distances. As they worked, Maya could hear the steady stream of passengers boarding the plane. Through the slightly open cockpit door, she caught glimpses of business travelers stowing laptops, families settling children, and solo travelers arranging their personal items. A soft knock on the door frame drew her attention. Thomas stood there, looking every bit the executive in his tailored suit. "Mind if I come in for a moment?" "Of course not," Maya replied, gesturing him in while continuing her checks. Thomas stepped into the cockpit, careful not to touch any of the controls. "I just wanted to check in before we take off. Are you okay after what happened earlier?" Maya glanced up briefly. "I'm fine, Thomas. It wasn't my first experience with bias, and I doubt it'll be my last." Thomas frowned. "That's exactly what bothers me. You shouldn't have to deal with this, especially not at our own airline." Maya completed a system check before responding. "No one should have to deal with bias, but the reality is, it exists. What matters is how we address it when it happens." Alex, who had been quietly working beside them, looked curious. "Did something happen at the airport?" Maya hesitated, but Thomas answered before she could decide whether to share the story. "Our esteemed captain and director was denied access to the first-class lounge because she wasn't in uniform and the attendant didn't believe she could possibly be a pilot or executive," he explained, his voice tight with lingering anger. Alex's eyebrows shot up. "Seriously? In 2025? Maya sighed. "It was a misunderstanding that got sorted out, and now we're using it as an opportunity to improve training for customer-facing staff." "That's putting it mildly," Thomas muttered. The young man should count himself lucky to still have a job. "Firing him wouldn't solve anything," Maya said firmly. "Education will." Thomas studied her for a moment. "You're a better person than I am, Maya. I would have had him clearing out his desk within the hour." "Which is why you're in operations and I'm in personnel development," she replied with a small smile. "Different approaches for different challenges." A call came through from the ground crew and Maya returned her full attention to pre-flight procedures. "Thomas, we need to finish our checks. We'll talk more in London?" "Of course," he agreed, stepping back toward the door. "I'll see you after landing. Fly safe." As Thomas left, Alex turned to Maya. "For what it's worth, I think your approach was right. Firing that attendant would have just made him bitter. This way, there's a chance for real change." Maya appreciated the support. "That's the hope. Now let's focus on getting these people safely to London, shall we?" They completed the remainder of their checks in comfortable efficiency, the rhythm of their pre-flight routine familiar and reassuring. Maya's earlier frustration faded as she immersed herself in the work she loved. As boarding neared completion, Diane appeared at the cockpit door. "Almost ready for departure, Captain. Just waiting on a few more passengers." Perfect, Maya replied. We're all set in here. As Diane turned to leave, she hesitated. Captain? There's been some talk among the passengers. Apparently, several people witnessed what happened in the lounge and word has spread through the cabin. Maya tensed slightly. Is it causing any issues? Quite the opposite, Diane said with a small smile. You've got quite a few admirers out there. Several passengers have specifically asked to thank you for handling the situation with such grace. And there's a young girl in row 15 who hasn't stopped telling everyone that the lady pilot is going to show her the cockpit in London. Despite herself, Maya smiled. That would be Zoe. And yes, I promised her a quick tour after landing if her mother approved. I'll make a note of it, Diane assured her. And Captain? For what it's worth, the crew is proud to fly with you. Always. After Diane left, Maya sat quietly for a moment, touched by the unexpected support. Throughout her career, she had encountered prejudice and skepticism, but she had also found allies and advocates, sometimes in the most unexpected places. The final passengers boarded, and the cabin crew secured the doors. Maya prepared for pushback, her mind now fully focused on the complex dance of machinery, physics, and human coordination that would soon lift them into the sky. London Heathrow, here we come, Alex said as they began taxiing. Maya smiled as she guided the massive aircraft toward the runway. This was where she belonged, not fighting for recognition in airport lounges, but commanding the skies with skill and confidence. The takeoff was smooth, the powerful engines propelling them upward, with a force that still thrilled Maya even after thousands of flights. As they climbed through the clouds into clear blue sky, she felt the familiar sense of freedom that came with leaving the ground behind. Once they reached cruising altitude and engaged the autopilot, Maya allowed herself to relax slightly. She gazed out at the vast expanse of sky, the curvature of the earth just visible on the horizon. No matter how many times she experienced it, the view never ceased to amaze her. I'm going to check on our passengers, she decided, rising from her seat. Be back in a few. Alex nodded. Take your time. Everything's stable up here. Maya straightened her uniform before stepping into the main cabin. Heads turned as she made her way down the aisle, her presence drawing curious and admiring glances. She smiled and nodded to passengers, stopping occasionally to answer questions or chat briefly. When she reached row 15, she found Zoe staring out the window, her face pressed against the glass in wonder. The girl's mother noticed Maya and tapped Zoe's shoulder. Look who's here, she said softly. Zoe turned, her face lighting up with excitement. Captain Maya, are we in the sky now? Maya smiled. We certainly are. About 38,000 feet up, actually. Wow, Zoe breathed. It looks so different up here. The clouds are underneath us. That's one of the best parts of flying, Maya agreed. Seeing the world from a different perspective. Do you still get excited when you fly? Zoe asked. Every single time, Maya told her honestly. Even after 15 years, it still feels magical. Zoe nodded seriously. I'm going to be just like you when I grow up. I'm going to fly the biggest planes and go all over the world. I believe you will, Maya said. And maybe someday I'll be a passenger on one of your flights. The thought clearly delighted Zoe, who beamed with pride at the idea. I'll give you extra cookies. Maya laughed. I'll hold you to that. Now I need to get back to the cockpit, but I'll see you in London for that tour I promised. As she continued down the aisle, Maya spotted Thomas in his first-class seat working on his laptop. He looked up as she approached. Everything okay up there? He asked, nodding toward the cockpit. Perfect. Smooth flying all the way so far. Thomas closed his laptop. I've been thinking about what happened at the lounge. I'd like to expand your training proposal beyond just the lounge staff. Maybe implement it company. I whined. Maya raised an eyebrow. That's ambitious. So was putting a black woman on the board of directors, according to some of our more traditional shareholders. Thomas replied with a wry smile. But it was the right decision then, and this is the right decision now. I'd be happy to help develop the program, Maya offered. I have some ideas already. I was counting on that, Thomas admitted. We could start with customer-facing roles and then expand to all departments. What do you think? I think it's a good start, Maya agreed. But training alone isn't enough. We need to look at our hiring practices, promotion pathways, mentorship programs. Thomas held up a hand, laughing. One step at a time, Director Johnson. Let's start with the training and see where it takes us. Maya smiled. Fair enough. We'll talk more in London. As she made her way back toward the cockpit, Maya noticed a man watching her with a curious expression. She recognized him as one of the passengers who had been in the lounge during her confrontation with Kevin. Excuse me, Captain, he said as she passed his seat. I hope you don't mind my saying so, but I witnessed what happened earlier at the lounge. Maya paused. It's water under the bridge now. The man shook his head in admiration. The way you handled it was remarkable. Most people would have lost their temper, but you stayed so calm and professional. Thank you, Maya said simply. My daughter is studying aviation management. The man continued. She faces challenges too as a woman in a male-dominated field. I'm going to tell her about you when I get home. It's important for her to know that it's possible to succeed with dignity, even when facing prejudice. Maya was touched by his words. What's your daughter's name? Layla, he replied with obvious pride. She's at her second year at Embry-Riddle. An excellent school, Maya noted. Please tell Layla that the sky is opening up for all of us slowly but surely, and if she ever wants career advice, she can reach out to me through Skyline's mentorship program. The man looked surprised and grateful. That's incredibly kind of you. I know she'd be thrilled. By the time Maya returned to the cockpit, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The incident with Kevin had been frustrating, but it had also created unexpected connections. With Zoe, with Layla's father, with the passengers who had witnessed her response to adversity. Small ripples that might grow into waves of change. Everything good back there? Alex asked as she settled back into her seat. Better than good, Maya replied, checking the instruments. How are we doing up here? On course and on time. Weathers, holding steady. Maya nodded, satisfied. Perfect. Let's keep it that way. As they continued their journey across the Atlantic, Maya reflected on the day's events. When she'd dressed in her comfortable clothes that morning, she couldn't have imagined the chain reaction it would set off. But that was often how change happened. Not through grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but through small moments of challenge and response, through individual choices to either reinforce or question the status quo. Her phone buzzed, with a message. She checked it during a quiet moment and found an email from Patricia. Maya, just wanted to let you know that HR is fully on board with the training program. Kevin has already volunteered to help develop it and share his perspective. Also, I've spoken with my regional manager, who wants to implement similar training across all our lounges. Your approach turned what could have been a PR disaster into an opportunity for growth. Safe travels to London. Patricia. Maya smiled as she tucked her phone away. Sometimes the most powerful response to prejudice wasn't anger or retaliation, but education and opportunity. Not because the anger wasn't justified, but because transformation required more than just emotional release. It required concrete action and systemic change. The plane cut smoothly through the sky, a marvel of engineering carrying hundreds of lives safely across vast distances. Maya checked their position on the navigation system, making minor adjustments to their course. In many ways, creating change was like flying. It required constant adjustments, careful attention to conditions, and a clear vision of the destination. Alex noticed her thoughtful expression. Penny for your thoughts, Captain. Maya smiled. Just thinking about how flying teaches you patience. You can't rush the journey. You have to respect the process, work with the conditions, and keep your destination in sight. Sounds like a life philosophy, Alex observed. Maybe it is, Maya agreed. Maybe it is. Outside the window, the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon. painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and gold. Maya watched the changing light, grateful for this moment of beauty and peace high above the earth. The radio crackled with a message from air traffic control, bringing her attention back to the immediate task at hand. There would be time for reflection later. For now, she had a plane to fly, passengers to keep safe, and a promise to keep to a young girl with dreams as vast as the sky itself. Skyline 237, this is London Control. We have you on approach vector. Weather conditions clear for landing at Heathrow, Maya responded with practiced professionalism. London Control, Skyline 237. We copy. Beginning approach preparation. As she guided the aircraft toward its destination, Maya felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, today she had navigated both the sky and the complicated landscape of human bias with skill and grace. And somewhere behind her, a young girl named Zoe was watching, learning, and dreaming of her own future among the clouds. That perhaps was the most important achievement of all. 6 months had passed since the incident at O'Hare International Airport. Maya stood at the podium in the grand ballroom of the Hyatt Regency, looking out at the sea of faces before her. The annual Aviation Leadership Awards dinner had drawn hundreds of industry professionals, all dressed in their finest attire, a stark contrast to the casual clothes that had sparked such an unexpected chain of events half a year ago. It is my great honor, the host announced, to present this year's Innovation in Aviation Leadership Award to Captain Maya Johnson, Director of Flight Operations at Skyline Airlines, for her groundbreaking work in creating the industry-leading Sky for All Diversity and Inclusion initiative. The room erupted in applause as Maya stepped forward to accept the elegant crystal trophy. Camera flashes popped throughout the ballroom, capturing the moment for industry publications and social media. Maya took a deep breath as she approached the microphone, feeling a familiar flutter of nerves despite her years of experience addressing crowds. "Thank you," she began, her voice clear and steady. "This recognition means a great deal to me, but even more to the thousands of people who have contributed to making Sky for All a reality." She paused, looking out at the attentive faces. In the front row sat Thomas Bennett, nodding encouragingly. Beside him was Patricia Williams, who had been instrumental in implementing the program across Skyline's airport lounges. And there, at a table near the middle of the room, was Kevin, who had traveled from Chicago specifically for this ceremony. "Some of you may have heard the story that sparked this initiative," Maya continued. 6 months ago, I was denied access to a first-class lounge because I didn't fit someone's image of what a pilot or airline director should look like. It was a small moment in the grand scheme of things, but it highlighted a larger truth. Our industry still has work to do when it comes to recognizing and valuing diversity. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience. Maya had told this story many times now in training sessions and boardrooms, in interviews and focus groups. Each telling had become easier, less personal, more purposeful. What makes Sky for All different from other diversity programs isn't just its comprehensive approach, though that's certainly important. What sets it apart is that it was born not from anger or punishment, but from a shared recognition that we all have blind spots, and a shared commitment to addressing them together. Maya glanced at Kevin, who met her gaze with a small, appreciative smile. In the months since their encounter, he had become one of the program's most dedicated advocates, sharing his experience candidly as a teaching tool. His willingness to acknowledge his mistake and work toward change had been crucial to the program's authenticity. Since launching Sky for All, Skyline has implemented bias awareness training for over 12,000 employees. We've revised hiring practices to reduce unconscious bias in recruitment. We've created mentorship opportunities for underrepresented groups in aviation. And perhaps most importantly, we've opened up honest conversations about the assumptions we all make and how those assumptions shape our world. Maya set aside her prepared notes, deciding to speak from the heart. But this award doesn't represent the end of a journey. It represents a beginning. The real measure of our success isn't this trophy or the press coverage or even the statistics showing I said diversity in our ranks. The real measure is in the daily interactions between colleagues, between staff and passengers, between people who might once have looked at each other with doubt or discomfort, but who now see beyond surface differences to recognize shared humanity and professional capability. She thought about Zoe, the young girl from the flight, who had written to Maya several times since their meeting. Zoe's most recent letter had included a school project about famous female pilots, with Maya listed proudly among aviation pioneers. I want to share a quote that has guided me throughout my career, from the great Bessie Coleman, who became the first African-American woman to earn a pilot's license back in 1921. She said, "The air is the only place free from prejudices." When I'm flying at 40,000 feet, I know exactly what she meant. Up there, only skill and knowledge matter, not gender, not race, not background. Maya paused, looking around the room again. Our challenge, our responsibility, is to bring that same clarity of vision to the ground. To create an industry where, like the open sky, everyone with the necessary skills and dedication can soar. The applause that followed was thunderous. As Maya returned to her seat, accepting handshakes and congratulations along the way, she caught sight of a familiar face in the back of the room, a young woman in her early 20s watching with shining eyes. It took Maya a moment to place her, but then she remembered Layla, the daughter of the passenger who had spoken to Maya on the flight to London. After the ceremony concluded and people began mingling over dessert and coffee, Layla made her way to Maya's table. "Captain Johnson? I'm Layla Nasser. My father met you on a flight to London 6 months ago. He told me your story, and well, it changed my path." Maya stood to greet her properly. "Layla, of course. Your father mentioned you. We're at Embry-Riddle. How are your studies going?" "That's actually what I wanted to tell you," Layla said, her expression a mix of excitement and nervousness. "After hearing about you, I switched my focus from aviation management to pilot training. I'm in my first year of flight lessons now." Maya felt a surge of joy at this unexpected news. "That's wonderful. How are you finding it?" "Challenging," Layla admitted with a laugh. "But in the best way possible. My instructor says I have good instincts, and whenever I doubt myself, I think about what my father told me about you, how you handled that situation with such dignity, and then used it to create positive change." Before Maya could respond, Kevin approached their table, stopping respectfully a few feet away until Maya beckoned him closer. "Kevin, come meet Layla. She's training to become a pilot." Kevin extended his hand to Layla. "That's fantastic. We need more diverse perspectives in the cockpit." Layla shook his hand, looking slightly confused about who he was. Maya explained, "Kevin and I have an interesting history. He's actually a key reason why Sky for All exists." Understanding dawned on Layla's face. "Oh, you're the lounge attendant from the story?" Kevin nodded, his expression a mix of embarrassment and pride. "The very same. Not my finest moment, but hopefully my most educational one." "Kevin has been essential to the program's success," Maya added. "His willingness to share his perspective has made the training authentic in a way it couldn't have been otherwise." "It's been a journey," Kevin acknowledged. "When I look back at who I was 6 months ago, I barely recognize that person. I had so many unconscious biases I didn't even realize I was carrying." "We all do," Maya said gently. "The key is being willing to recognize them and work on them." Thomas joined their small group, champagne glass in hand. "Are you telling the origin story again?" Maya's too modest to mention that the program she developed has been so successful that 3 other major airlines have now licensed it for their own use. Maya shook her head, embarrassed by the praise. "It's been a team effort from the start." "A team you built and led," Thomas pointed out. "The board voted unanimously last week to expand the program internationally, by the way. I was waiting for the right moment to tell you." Maya's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Internationally? That's much sooner than we planned." "Success accelerates timelines," Thomas replied with a smile. "Our European partners are particularly eager to implement it after seeing our results. Turns out addressing bias is good for business. Who knew?" "Everyone who's ever been on the receiving end of bias," Maya said dryly. Thomas acknowledged this, with a nod. "Fair point. Well made. He turned to Layla. So you're training to be a pilot? Skyline has an excellent internship program for student pilots, you know. Layla's eyes widened. Really? I'd love to learn more about that. As Thomas began explaining the details of the program to an attentive Layla, Patricia approached with a small plate of dessert for Maya. You didn't get a chance to eat yours, she explained, setting down the plate. Too many admirers demanding your attention. Thank you, Maya said gratefully. How are things at O'Hare? Any improvement since the training? Patricia's face lit up. Remarkable difference. Complaints about differential treatment are down 70%. And interestingly, overall customer satisfaction with lounge service is up nearly 30%. Turns out staff who aren't making biased assumptions provide better service to everyone. Who could have guessed? The irony in her tone matched Maya's earlier comment, making both women smile in shared understanding. As the evening progressed, Maya found herself at the center of various conversations, all revolving around the impact of Sky for All and plans for its future. Industry leaders who had initially been skeptical now approached with questions and interest. Younger staff members thanked her for creating more inclusive workspaces. A few even shared their own stories of bias encountered and overcome. Near the end of the evening, Kevin found a moment to speak with Maya privately. I never properly thanked you, he said, his voice serious. Not just for not getting me fired that day, but for seeing something in me worth salvaging. Maya studied him thoughtfully. I saw someone who made a mistake, not someone who was irredeemable. There's a big difference. Still, you could have walked away. Used your influence to demand punishment rather than create change. Kevin shook, his head in wonder. Most people would have. Maybe, Maya acknowledged. But then we wouldn't be here today, would we? Sometimes the hardest path leads to the best destinations. Kevin smiled at the aviation metaphor. The program's changing lives, you know. Not just in big, obvious ways, but in small daily interactions. I see it all the time at the lounge now. Staff taking that extra moment to check their assumptions before acting. Treating everyone with the same level of respect and service. That's what it's all about, Maya said. Those small moments add up to create our culture, our environment, our world. As the evening drew to a close, Maya found herself standing near the large windows of the ballroom, looking out at the city, lights below. Behind her, the sounds of conversation and laughter filled the room, a testament to connections formed and strengthened. Patricia joined her at the window. Penny, for your thoughts? Maya smiled. I was just thinking about how unexpected life can be. 6 months ago, I was standing in an airport lounge being told I didn't belong there. Tonight, I'm receiving an award for turning that moment into something meaningful. It takes a special kind of person to see opportunity in difficulty. Patricia observed. Or maybe just a stubborn one, Maya replied with a laugh. Either way, you've created something important, Patricia said. Something that will outlast both of us. Maya nodded, touched by the thought. That's the best kind of legacy, isn't it? Not buildings or monuments, but changes in how people think and act. The host announced that the event was coming to a close, and people began gathering their belongings and saying their goodbyes. Maya collected her award and her small clutch purse, preparing to leave. As she made her way toward the exit, she passed a table where hotel staff were clearing dishes. One of the young women, noticing Maya's award, gave her a shy smile. Congratulations, ma'am, she said quietly. Thank you, Maya replied, pausing briefly. The young woman hesitated, then added, I heard some of your speech about seeing people for their skills, not their appearance. It was really good. Maya smiled. What's your name? Tasha, the young woman replied, seeming surprised to be asked. Well, Tasha, thank you for your kind words. And thank you for your work tonight. Events like this don't happen without dedicated people behind the scenes. Tasha's smile widened at the acknowledgement. Thank you, ma'am. Have a good night. As Maya finally left the ballroom, she carried with her not just the weight of the Crystal Award, but the lighter, brighter weight of connections made and perspectives shifted. From Kevin to Layla to Tasha, and countless others whose names she might never know. Change happened in grand gestures and policy overhauls, yes, but it also happened in brief exchanges and small acknowledgments, in moments of recognition and respect. Each interaction was a chance to reinforce old biases, or to challenge them,